The Academies Bill, currently before Parliament, could turn out to be one of the most far-reaching education policies of the new government. It allows for the first time primary schools and special schools to become academies.
I think that what we're looking at is perhaps the most significant change in the structure of English education for 45 years.
But what exactly will schools gain or lose by taking academy status? In this edition of Need to Know, I'll be visiting two primary schools, one already an academy, the other thinking about becoming one, and asking what's in it for them.
I was personally quite shocked when someone told me that we would no longer be VAT exempt.
Our pay is in line with the normal pay scale that all local authorities schools.
But I think we do get a bit extra because of the longer school day.
Like all schools graded as outstanding, Woodbury Down Primary will be eligible for a fast-track route to academy status, as explained in a letter from the Education Secretary. Head teacher Greg Wallace has already registered his interest online, but many details remain unknown. Is it clear yet how much extra money you would get?
No, it's not clear at all. I mean, we're all thinking 10%, but I've no idea, and finding out for definite how much money is important because it's a major part of the decision to become an academy or not become an academy.
There are currently 203 academies. Most replaced former failing schools. The last government had planned to expand to 400 academies, but the new government's plans are much more ambitious. As well as the fast track for those graded as outstanding, all schools have been invited to become academies. And before the election, Michael Gove said failing schools that remain in special measures for over a year would become academies in 2011. It's a big step from how this policy began 20 years ago. The origins of today's academies lie in the late 1980s, when Mrs Thatcher's Conservative government created city technology colleges and grant-maintained schools. Both policies aimed to dilute the power of local councils and to inject greater market forces into school provision. After 1997, the Labour government ended grant-maintained status, but essentially left schools with most of their new-won autonomy of self-management. And city technology colleges were reborn as Labour's city academies, designed to offer a fresh start to failing inner-city schools. The current Academies Bill now seeks to extend academy status to the great majority of schools. The government wants to simplify and accelerate transfer to academy status by removing the requirement for consultation with the local authority. Nor will academies have to consult parents, although they're advised to do so. The requirement for outside sponsors is also dropped. However, academies are expected, but not required, to support weaker neighbouring schools. This change, in a sense, it builds on things we've had in the past, from city technology colleges and specialist schools and so on. How do you see it in the historical perspective of change to schools?
I think it stands as the latest step in a long line of changes that have had at their heart the idea of more school autonomy, of schools being able to adapt and develop their curriculum to meet their own population of students.
I think that what we're looking at is perhaps the most significant change in the structure of English education for 45 years, certainly since the comprehensivisation of the 1960s.
The King Solomon Academy, sponsored by the education charity ARC, was one of the first to include primary-age pupils as an all-through 5 to 19 school. Head teacher Vanessa Wilms has used the freedoms of academy status to devote over 75% of the curriculum to literacy and numeracy, and to have a longer school day. With lots of schools perhaps thinking now about the possibility of becoming academies, what things have you been able to do because you're an academy, which you might not have been able to do if you were a local authority school?
Sure. I think the big ones for me were obviously curriculum freedom, that we were able then to focus and to focus on depth before breadth, with the real emphasis on making sure that children are competent readers and writers as well as dealing with number. So our timetable is skewed to reflect that particular emphasis. The other is about the length of our school day and the weeks during the year which we have the children. Our children, even the very young ones, start at 8:30 in the morning until 4, going until 5 for targeted children. And we have more teaching time during the year as well. We've just had our year 2s in for an Easter school. So we're able to do that and not tied into local authority school opening and closing times.
Academies can also depart from national pay and conditions for teachers. So what's the view from the staff room at the King Solomon Academy?
I don't find it that much different to working in a local authority school. There are a couple of minor differences, but nothing really major.
We have the longer school day,
yes.
which is 8:30 till 4.
Right.
Which is much longer than a normal local authority school, because of course they're only usually 9 till 3:30, or even.
We find that's really good because we get to give them daily music and daily PE lessons.
So it's a longer school day, but do you get paid more?
I don't think so. I'm pretty much on what I was on in the local authority school.
Right.
Our pay is in line with the normal pay scale that all local authorities schools.
Right.
But I think we do get a bit extra because of the longer school day.
Yes.
If an academy didn't offer the same sort of money, you wouldn't get teachers applying for the jobs there. So,
Under the proposed new law, academy trusts will become the new employers of the school's staff. Their terms of employment are protected under employment laws, meaning they're entitled to retain existing terms and conditions.
It's important to remember that all of this will be governed by employment law. There are not some special sets of circumstances for education, and so teachers will have all the protections that there are in the employment laws of this country. And I do believe teachers should be reassured about that.
Exactly how much extra cash academies will receive remains unclear. Experts estimate anywhere between 2.5% and 12% of their budget, depending on how much the local authority currently holds back for central services. But schools that become academies will become liable for VAT on some purchases and will have to buy in services such as special needs support, staff training or payroll management. Now, what about all the services that if you're a local authority school you'd be getting from your LEA? Where do you get those from now? Do you buy them from elsewhere? What do you do?
Being a part of a network, we're able to draw on many services from the main organisation, from ARC. So from HR support through to finance, governance and education support, we do receive that.
So do you pay for some services then from the local authority?
We do pay for some services from the local authority, ranging from speech and language support through to supporting our NQTs.
But if large numbers of schools become academies, each taking their slice of the council's budget for central services, what will happen to local education authorities? They're going to lose a lot of money, aren't they?
They're going to lose a significant amount of money. We're 7 to 10% of a budget for a secondary school of about 1,000 pupils is £500,000. So multiply that across the authority and you're looking at considerable amounts of money. And I think it raises very significant questions about the strategic capacity of local authorities to meet the needs of schools across the local authority. They're going to have to think very hard about their future role.
If the Academies Bill gets through Parliament quickly, the government hopes some outstanding schools could become academies by September. The process requires a simple online registration, a positive resolution from the governing body, and for the Secretary of State to use new powers he intends to take in the bill to order local authorities to cease to maintain particular schools. Only where there are substantial budget deficits or other exceptional circumstances is approval likely to be withheld. And what's the next step for you? What do you need to sort of ask yourselves? What information do you need to know before you can make the decision to actually apply?
Now that we know a little bit about it, we've got a lot of questions, so we're quite keen for the person from the Department for Education to make the phone call and begin answering questions, because there's lots and lots of rumours and things. So I'm very concerned about VAT status. We're interested to know what happens to us as a federation applying to do this. So I've got lots of questions that we want answers to, yeah. And
VAT, would that change things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was personally quite shocked when someone told me that we would no longer be VAT exempt and we would have to pay VAT, because if you got 10% additional funding but were paying VAT, one could potentially almost cancel out the other, which would just be a lot of form filling for no gain.
Is this something you think that schools need to think carefully about and ask important questions about before they actually leap?
Yeah, I think you have to think really carefully about it, because we've got to be 110% clear about what the benefits are.
There are still many unanswered questions about the new route to academy status. including exactly how much extra money will new academies get. Will they get their VAT costs subsidised? And will existing federations have to disband to become academies? Within a week of Michael Gove's letter, over 1,100 schools had registered their interest. Of these, 626 were outstanding schools, including over 250 primaries. The governing bodies at these schools will now have to decide whether to take the next, much bigger step and formally apply. Academy status does bring freedoms, but many schools will be cautious about rushing into something so complex, which normally takes years rather than weeks to prepare for. And with the government planning greater freedoms for all schools on things like the curriculum and on pay, many will feel that despite the incentives of extra money, the best policy is to wait and see. Next week in Need to Know, we'll be looking at the proposed new freedoms for schools over the curriculum and qualifications, like the IGCSE.